Hello and welcome to my first ever Senate prediction election for the 2018 election. This is the first video I actually am making that will finally reflect an election prediction. So this is the all these seats are up as of now, and try and go through all of them. Hope and then try and see how accurately I get it. And sorry about these interruptions. So first I'm just going to go west to east. First, I think Alaska is going to go by a likely, if not lean margin. Probably lean might be more accurate. But the reason I say it's Alaska is if we go to the Alaska Senate election, it's technically an independent against incumbent Dan Sullivan, but at the same time, he's endorsed by the Democratic Party. So I guess polls right now, a D and Turner poll had it tied. Another, which originally had Sullivan +5. A lot of undecideds, but I think at the end of the day, Alaska's just going to hold. And so Oregon, that's a safe blue. The results in the Oregon Senate election is that you have a populist incumbent going up against a very controversial conspiracy theorist for the Senate seat. And so Oregon is kind of trending blue anyway. I mean, maybe Scalatos might win the 4th district, but other than that, Oregon is a safe blue. And Idaho, that's a safe red. I mean, there's just no way that Idaho flips. In 2014, if you can, as you can see, it went to Risch by like over 30 points. And right now, I don't see any evidence that the Democrat challenger Paulette Jordan has any real chance. There's one poll right now. It's an all-internal, but still he's up by like 25, so I don't see Idaho flipping. Montana is another interesting one because normally it would be a safe red. In 2014, it went to Daines by 17 points, but now you have a popular governor trying to run against him. This doesn't always work, though, as we saw in Tennessee in 2018, and I think when we look at where the polling is right now, Daines is up, but barely. And I mean, he was up since July. I mean, Nolan Turner has him up by 3. Emerson has him up by 6. And then, like, a couple other cinema has him up by Cena. Well, and what I don't know what you call this, has it up by 1. Has this Cosby or Wizard has him up by 3. Again, a lot of undecided, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to go by probably be not even closer than Alaska, simply because down ballot of Trump, and also it's just even though his scandal did come through, I don't think it's going to affect him much. So now we have Wyoming. Wyoming, Mike Enzi is retiring. In 2014, he won the state by an impossibly to think about margin, like 55 points. So he is not going. So, and I think the person they got to replace her, Kathleen Loomis, she was a representative at large of the state, so she already won a statewide election once, and we don't have any polling, but again, down ballot of Trump, I think Wyoming's not flipping. So South Dakota. South Dakota's another safe red state. I mean, you have Mike Rounds, who in 2014 won the state by like 21 points. Again, there was a split in the Democrats somewhat with Larry Kressler, but still, I don't see him really. I mean, he got 70,000 in the primary. His Democrat challenger, there wasn't even a primary because only one managed to qualify, and no one really thinks South Dakota isn't going to be competitive at all, then I would say it'd be a safe red. But moving on, we have another safe red in the state of Nebraska. Ben Sasse, who won the state last election by well over like 33 points. Never lost a single county. Even if he does do slightly worse this time around, he would still probably win. No polls come from the state yet, but most people are accepting that it's another safe all. So we're going to move from this area down to the southwest with Arizona. Arizona is probably Arizona is our first interesting race because the incumbent is looking like she will lose by a fairly large margin. As you can see, Rio Clear has her down by 5.5. The average is about 7. I mean, even all internals show her down by 3. So I think she is going to lose. It might be close with Trump, but at the end of the day, it's not going. It's going to be a flip from. I'm going to say probably closer than we expect, but not that close. So now we have the state of Colorado. This is like the Democrats' most guaranteed flip. You have an unpopular incumbent in Cory Gardner versus the former governor who was very popular. And so I don't think it's going to end well for Gardner, even though technically in the primaries they will close. Well, I think those Romanov supporters are just going to go to Hickenlooper at the end of the day, and there isn't much polling. The polling that here's the polling. Yeah, the polling right now. This one shows at 7. I mean, sometimes it goes 5. The internal has at 10. So it's not going to be a safe margin, but I will say probably be even better for the Democrats in Arizona. The state of New Mexico is next. Keep click on that, but New Mexico has a retiring senator, and right now the incumbent Ben Ray Lujan is coming in. In 2014, Tom Erdo won by 11 points. It'd be pretty hard to really swing it. Some people are saying it might be close. As we can see from research polling, it has a 9-point lead, another by 12. I mean, I think New Mexico is going to go out safe, if not likely. I mean, it could go closer, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a safe blue, if not likely. So now we can go to Kansas. Kansas is a state that has a retiring Republican senator, Pat Roberts, and I keep seeing this on like the what you call the left wing Twitter that well, not really left wing, but more Democrat Twitter, liberal resistance Twitter that thinks that Boileau is really going to pull it off, but I just don't think so. It's not Kobach, and I mean, a Staley Coast poll has him up by 7. I mean, one D internal had her up by 2. That's about the entirety of her accomplishments, other than getting like Nancy Kassebaum, who was a former senator who was a Republican, to endorse her. Oh, but I don't think that's going to apply much because Marshall has Bob Dole endorsing him. So I think at the end of the day, it probably will be closer than the other states, but it's probably going to be another likely margin. I mean, if not this lean, but it's probably going to be likely at the end of the day. Oklahoma, that's another safe red state in Jim Inhofe. I mean, in 2014, he never lost. He didn't lose a single county, and it's one of the few states Trump never lost a county in. So it's like a pretty safe red state. I mean, I don't even know what. I've never even heard of this challenger, and I'm just going to assume that she's going to go down in a sound defeat. Now we can go on to another state that is considered somewhat competitive, but not really, in Texas. Texas is another state that has like a big grifting problem, if you know. It's like Democrats are sending tons of money into Texas for a candidate who's most likely not going to win. Like, polls currently show Corden up as 10, one has him down as 6, but there's usually a consensus amongst the polls that he's going to win by at least likely, if not safe. I think he's probably going to win by safe at the end of the day. Not a divisive incumbent like Ted Cruz was, and MJ Hedger is definitely no Beto O'Rourke. But that's my prediction, and I think they're pouring millions of dollars into a campaign that's just. I think they're sinking all that money in when they should be putting money to make sure Kelly, Hickenlooper, or any of the other Democrats that I'll mention later. So that was supposed to happen. So I'll start with the South. Louisiana, that's a pretty safe red state. I mean, I don't even think it takes you to the taking. Okay, it has Bill Cassidy. He won by 11 points, almost 12 points. And right now, it's there's no real polling. We have that a generic opponent would probably lose by 1 according to his Tyson Group poll. But other than that, I think at the end of the day, it's just and if you can tell how this works out, this looks very chaotic. It's a jungle primary, and I just don't think it's going to. I think Cassidy is going to win this fairly easily. So Arkansas, yeah, I'm gonna say it's a safe red for sure. And if we just go look here, there's not even a Democrat challenger. There's no poll that sit of like the against the Libertarian challenger, but Cotton pretty much not is a shoe-in to win. He's probably going to get like something stupid like 80, 90% of the vote. Now we have another weird one in Iowa. You have Johnny Ernest versus Teresa Greenfield. Right now, the polling shows it very close. Sometimes it be a tie. Right now, Greenfield is kind of in the lead, but we also notice there's a lot of D internals, and then there's one poll which is clearly not accurate. Like, she's not winning a swing state that Trump carried by 9 points, by 12. But for that, I'm not sure how to rank this one. I actually think at the end of the day, with Trump on the ballot, it's going to be a close race, but I think Ernst would just pull off a victory. I think the polling in Iowa is usually not reliable anyway, but I digress, and let's move on to Minnesota. Um, Minnesota, you have Tina Smith, who was elected in a special election in 2018. She won by 11 points, but she's running against a U.S. Representative, Jason Lewis. I mean, this is a state that Trump could actually win, which would be the first flip and first time Republicans won Minnesota since '72. But as for the Senate seat, it's not looking too good for Lewis. It was starting to close a little, but since then it just isn't looking good for Lewis. He's losing by 8 to 10, sometimes even 15. He's not going to lose by 15. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be more of a likely margin. Like he's going to make it closer, but not that closer. So now we can move on south to Illinois with Dick Durbin versus Mark Caron. In 2014, Durbin won the state by 11 points, which for Illinois, I guess, is a little more closer than usual. But right now, polling is only hypothetical. I mean, it says 11 points, which is probably going to be what the Republicans lose by. Caron is probably not going to win. Not going to get past. Not going. He's going to lose by 10. Is what I'm trying to say. And so now we move on to that's 2018. We move on to Kentucky. which is the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell's seat. And again, this is another grift seat because Democrats are pulling like millions, a stupid amount, into Amy McGrath. And at the end of the day, the gap is actually widening. Even in D internals, she's down by 7, which usually means that she's probably down by like 12. So I think she's going to lose Kentucky in a safe margin by a safe margin. So moving south again to Tennessee. Tennessee was weird in 2018 because for the longest time you got people like LTE saying that it was probably going to be a Democrat flip, and then Blackburn won the state by 11. And again, it's Bill Hagerty. He won the Senate. He's actually replacing Lamar Alexander, who won by 30 points. I don't see Hagerty really losing. I mean, even though Alexander was more of a well-known politician. I mean, we don't really have too much evidence. The only thing that we have is that a Republican would probably win by 20 points. I think it's going to go by a safe margin. And then Mississippi. Mississippi, since I spent some time with like the liberal Twitter, there seems to be a lot of hope in Espy for a seat that he does not have any real chance of winning. In 2018, it got close for Mississippi levels, 7 points for only a 7-point lead for Republicans. But he would have to shift the state 8 points when Trump's on the ballot. Like, Trump's going to win it by a safe margin. I think when you consider down ballot, I mean, I think Cindy Hyde-Smith has it in the bag. I think these polls are vastly underestimating. I actually think this poll is the most accurate. The Impact Management Group, which has her leading by almost 30 points. That's probably more accurate to Mississippi. So that's probably going to be a safe red. Now we're moving to Alabama. Again, it went weird. In 2017, you had a very controversial Republican nominee. Probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. It was a very close election, Doug Jones. Like, Jones was going to have a big problem no matter what, but now especially, he voted for impeachment. He's going to vote against the Supreme Court nom. He already voted against Kavanaugh. He's just not making the constituents happy. And based on polling, it's looking like it would be an absolute murder, like safe red for the opposing party of an incumbent. It's going to be like the North Dakota Senate race in 2018, where it was just an absolute destruction of the incumbent. So we have to move on to 2 Georgia Senate seats. First off, you have the main one. You have David Perdue versus Jon Ossoff. I mean, this one is definitely close. Right now, Ossoff is kind of leading in the poll. Kind of. Not really, because this one has an even, this one has a lead, so Perdue should actually probably be leading in this, but polls are close, but at the same time, a D internal has Perdue up by 3. This daily cost polls has him down by 2. And a lot of these have been pretty wrong about. I've been oversimplifying Democrats like YouGov and Whitfield and Hart Institute and Cost. And so I think that it's not going to flip Democrat. And for the special election, this is probably another interesting. Basically, I think the Democrats are trying to get Raphael Warnock to do better than Collins just so that it won't be a Republican versus Republican in the state of Georgia. I mean, as of now, it was originally looking like it was going to be like a Collins versus Lafayette battle, but Warnock managed is probably going to lead. This is probably an outlier, though. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, either way, I think Republican, even if it's Collins versus Warnock or Lawful versus Warnock, I think at the end of the day, it's still going to be a Republican victory. And so right now we're at 48 to 41. Republicans have a slight lead, and I forgot, I probably should do it something more like this for that, just because. Anyway, let's go up north to Michigan. Oh, sorry about that. Michigan. You have Gary Peters versus John James. In 2014, Peters won by a stupid 13 points. Like, it was a brutal destruction. But the polling actually shows that this would be bad news for James, but polling is really starting to narrow down. In RCP, he's up 4.5. 270, he's up 7. In Trafalgar, he's tying or losing by 1, but it's also considered hyperpartisan. But then in a D internal, Peters is leading by 7 in a state that he lost by 1 by 13. So I think it's going to be close, but I don't think James is going to pull off the victory. But he can. It's like McSally can also pull off a victory. James is a lot better than McSally too. I actually think Michigan might go closer than Arizona in this election. But now we're reverting back to West Virginia. I mean, can anyone guess where this is going? It's a safe red. I mean, you have an environmental activist trying to win West Virginia. That should be key that she's not going to win. I mean, she got 30% against Joe Manchin in 2018 in the Dem primary. I don't think she can pull off this win. Capio isn't really unpopular in West Virginia, except with the hard left of West Virginia. And in fact, many moderate Democrats would probably support Capio over, how would you pronounce the name? Paula Jean Swigan? Anyway, wait, I've talked about this before. Maybe even Joe Manchin will support Capio over Swigan. But now we're moving down to these 3 states, Virginia and the Carolinas. Virginia is not flipping red. I mean, there are some polls are showing it might be not as safe. It might be a likely, and I would say it might go likely blue, but it won't go past likely blue. But even saying if even if it were to go likely blue, that's still a victory for Gage, because this is a state that has been trending the most blue of any state. Well, at least this part and this part is trending blue. The rest of it is kind of like now being forced to accept whatever the smaller urban areas want to do. But I digress from that. North Carolina, I mean, again, there's another scandal with Cunningham. There was some sex texting, but I don't think that's really going to go the way Red Eagle thinks, where it's going to absolutely destroy him. But he might take a 1% dip in the polls. Now, if we actually go to the polls, his lead has actually increased a lot. But then again, that's probably due to these 2 D-internal polls. So I think it's probably going to be more closer. It's probably going to be like this, actually. It'll probably be more like 3. But I think, again, it's winnable. But as of now, it's probably going to go blue. Yeah, like, the way I see it is that if your state is like light blue or this light red, it's winnable. If it's like this, it's pretty much unlikely to flip. And then like if it's dark, there's no way. So South Carolina, it's Lindsey Graham, probably one of the most unpopular senators in the Senate. Like, probably no one likes Lindsey Graham, but in 2014 he won by was that like 17 points? But right now the polls are showing it close, but he's also leading in the internals. Most of the polls that show Harrison up are the internals, or polls like Quinnipiac or Reno have a Democrat bias. I mean, so again, I think this is just another example of a grifting issue where I think it's going to go by likely red. Like, I think the polls are going to underestimate Graham just because I think so with Trump on the ballot, there's no way Harrison wins. If it was a midterm, Harrison would have a chance, but as of now, I think Democrats are pouring millions of dollars into a Senate seat they aren't going to win, which is good for the Republicans if they weren't pouring money into House seats they weren't going to win, like Minnesota 5 and Maryland 7. So Delaware, again, safe blue state, and with Biden on the ticket, there's no way it's going to go anything but safe. And again, Lauren Witzke, she's an interesting candidate because she's like very socially right wing, but economically is probably one of the most left wing Democrats. So, but I still think it goes by safe. At best, it goes like Virginia and goes likely, but that'd be hard to think about in its own. New Jersey, that's going to go for Booker pretty clearly. And Republicans couldn't even get half the turnout in their primary as Booker got as a whole. And right now, Emerson is predicting a 30-point, 24-point victory for Booker. So again, it's not trending red, especially with Trump in the 2020 election. So now we have just 4 New England states. We'll start with Rhode Island, if I can manage to click. Yeah, you have Alan Waddles, not a very known person, and right now he only got 8,000 people for a primary, and so I just think it's definitely not going to go anywhere but safe blue. And so now there are 3 Massachusetts. It's Ed Malaki, who just won a very challenging primary against Joe Kennedy III. His challenger is Kevin O'Connell, very moderate Republican, but still, he's it's still a very safe blue state. Like, this one poll has him like 10 points. And he does have the endorsement of the popular governor, but at best, maybe it could go likely. But even then, if it goes likely, that's like a big win because Massachusetts is like the most blue state in the United States. So even if it goes likely blue, I would consider that a GOP victory. So New Hampshire, again, this was a state that could have been closer, but they just don't have a very well-known candidate. Like, he's losing by 15, 14 points in a swing state. Probably won't be that bad of a victory, but it could still be a safe blue victory for the popular. And again, Shaheen is a popular senator. The only way she could lose if it was like Chris Sununu on the ticket, and even then, that would be a close election. And so now we have Maine. It's 50-49. So Maine at the moment it's a very contested election because obviously these independents aren't going to split the vote because of the ranked choice voting system. I mean, and right now Gideon is probably set to win, even though Colin's got 2 Democratic senators to endorse her. That's not going to be enough. I mean, she got President Trump, but none of those really matter. She, even though even though Gideon can't get like Golden or Mansion, it doesn't really matter. She's really starting to take the lead in the polls, getting a lot of the internal polls on here though, like data for progress. I mean, even in all internals, Collins, who won in 2014 by an absurdly 30%, is probably going to lose in like one of the biggest swings. Like, swing elections do happen before. In 2014, Caprio swung it by an amazing 25%. That's because the incumbent retired. So, again, Maine is probably not going to go safe. It's probably going to be, I actually think it might be more lean than likely, but it could be winnable, but at the same time, I think it's going to go for Gideon. So at the end of the day, the Senate becomes a 50-50 Senate, a dead even split. That would mean whoever becomes president means who controls the Senate. Because if Pence is vice president, then the Senate becomes a Republican Senate because he will act as a tie-breaking vote. If it's if it's Harris, then it becomes a Democrat Senate because she becomes a tie-breaking vote. So again, not really a stable Senate as it looks like in the future. Like, sure, Democrats might be able to pour a lot of money into Georgia special, Alaska, Iowa, or maybe Republicans can pour money into Michigan, Arizona, North Carolina, Maine. And then, it could probably be a more majority Republican or a more majority Democrat. But at the time, it's looking like a 50-50 Senate. And given that the election could also be 269 to 269, that could mean a lot of chaos. So, at the end of the day, we better hope that at least one party manages to flip one. Like maybe Republicans manage to get Arizona, keep the Senate, so there isn't this contested Senate. But as of now, this is my prediction. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you at the next prediction. And I hope I didn't get this too wrong.